Alright, let me go over these two problems, how to factor them. So I have 4y squared minus 81. The first thing I'm going to do is, you can write that with a 0y if it helps you. Raise your hand if you did that. Okay, sometimes that helps us, right? Then your a value is 4, b value is 0, and your c value is 81. You can do something kind of hard, right? You can do a times c. Put that in your calculator. 4 times negative 81 gives you negative 324. And your b value is 0. I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 324, but add to be 0. Well, if you're already adding to 0, they have to be opposites, yes? So then I'm thinking to myself that that number is going to be the same number. Well, if it's the same number, that's the definition of a square root. So I can just take the square root of 324, and I get 18. Positive 18 and a negative 18. Put this into my box. So I have positive and negative 18. So I'm going to add those in the green areas. They have to go, if you're using my method, they have to go in the bottom left and the top right. And then you add your variable, so that's a y. And then you put your first term up here, 4y squared, and then your last term. And then I'm just going to go here and find the greatest common factor. Does that make sense? You're really finding out what the greatest common factor is of this column, and that is what? 2y. You do the same thing over this direction. 2y. 2y times something equals 18y. What does that cost? Positive 9. And over here that'll be negative 9. So you'll notice that this is the GCF, and you'll also notice that they multiply. So my answer is 2y plus 9 and 2y minus 9. Raise your hand if you got that as your answer. Okay. Here's another way of doing that problem. It's a trick. I don't really like tricks. If you can take the square root of both of those, so the square root of 4y squared would be 2y, and the square root of, ignoring the minus sign, the square root of 81 is 9, and then 1's plus, 1's minus. Now, I don't like you to memorize that trick because it only works for something, they call this a difference of squares, right? It's a subtraction difference of, you can take the square root of both of those, okay? So that's our answer. All right, got a harder problem for you. Yeah?
For that problem, would it be wrong then to do 4y plus 9 and then y minus 9?
Yeah, if you multiply it out, I don't think it works. Because there's parts that don't cancel. Alright. Ooh, you guys haven't done something like this before, right? Maybe you have? Okay. How do you know if you can get trinomials? How do you know if you can get this trinomial to be a binomial times a binomial? Is that the exponents this one has to be half of this number. Okay? So for example, look over here. This is a 2, and this one is a half of 2 is 1, so you can do that. If I did an example like x to the third plus x minus 8, what's half of 3? Is that 1.5? No, so you can't factor that. Does that make sense? It would be a fraction, be kind of difficult. So over here, we can do this. Now, there's a couple of things you can do. You can do a substitution. Everyone say substitution. So they say that math problems get so crazy in calculus that you have to do a substitution. I can say w equals x squared. Okay, so we're going to use the substitution. So here, instead of me saying x to the 4th, I can say this is x squared squared. Do you guys agree? Yeah? So x squared is w squared. minus 3 times what? Now there's the w. Minus 4. And if you factor that problem, you would get w and w, right? The numbers would be what? 1 and 4. Which one has to be negative? Negative 4 and positive 1. Okay? And then I just go back and do my substitutions again. So now I have x squared plus 1. And there I have x squared minus 4. Does that look simplified to you? No. So I have x squared plus 1. And over here is a difference of squared, just like we did in the last problem. And however you want to do that, that'll become x plus 2, x minus 2 as your answer. And that's how you factor those two problems.